So there I was, grinding away in good old RuneScape, and I had this theory. What if every time you put a sock in a washing machine, there's a gremlin inside that machine waiting to collect more and more socks, and you have to pay the sock tax, just like with the bridge and the troll? Yes, I may or may not have done my laundry for the first time in the past 3 weeks. I promise you, I am an adult, okay? Now you might be thinking, I came here for the new boss in Old School RuneScape Creepers. What is this silly sock theory you have going on? Don't worry, we'll get to that. This is more important because if I don't get it out right now, it's gonna bother me for the next 2 weeks. And I need that validation. For instance, if you say, wow, Grievous, you are funny in the comments, I am already coming pockets before you can even finish that sentence. But back to the main topic. I never throw my socks away. You know when your big toe is all sad looking, peeking out of your dirty sock with a hole in it, just wanting to be warm and cozy like the rest of your toes? I enjoy watching that toe suffer. That toe made bad life decisions and now is facing the consequences. You never see a pinky toe with a hole in a sock, it's always the big one. In fact, I would be willing to bet that the big toe and the gremlin in your washing machine are in on it together to make sure you buy more socks that don't have holes in them. Now you might be thinking, do you have a reliable source for that crazy theory? Well, it was once revealed to me in a dream that may or may not have happened yesterday, so it has to be true. Anyways, we have a new boss coming out in few days, and believe it or not, during the recording of this video, it has been 134 days, 8 hours, 7 minutes and 47 seconds since the last PVM content came out. So, that's almost 5 months with no PVM content. Granted, we did get one of the best pieces of content 5 months ago, but still, my nuts are dry like an underweight squirrel during winter, so personally I am very excited for this. But enough about squirrels and socks, let's dive into this boss, the difficulty of it, the rewards you get, and what could be the strategies to tackle this. Let's start with preparing for it. Before you can even try to hunt the boss, you need to complete a master level quest, and to be able to complete it, you need 69 agility, nice, 64 thieving and 56 hunter. That being said, you also need to complete basically every other quest in the existence of this game, because boy, this list is long. Obviously, since it is a prerequisite to Desert Treasure 2 quest, which comes out in summer and which will be likely the most ambitious quest ever, it makes sense that this one kinda lives up to the hype. You don't wanna jump from Cook's Assistant to Dragon Slayer 2. The entire purpose of the quest is solving a murder mystery. Probably what will happen is someone asks you for a small favor. Now hearing those words, for most RuneScape players that will likely give them PTSD. But trust me, it's gonna be fine, don't worry. If you remember from Devious Minds, the same thing happened there, where you needed to solve a mystery, but it was never solved before the quest ended. It's also related to Fight Arena, another martial art quest, which means you probably have to fight or align with General Cassard, and this time you can't save spot with Fire Strike. The trolls are definitely gonna be involved, and it's probably just a lot of running around the map to solve the mystery until you finally get to the final boss and defeat it. So let's say you finish the quest, which will have the new boss in it. What Jagex likes to do these days is have the boss fight be rather easy during the quest and make it harder afterwards, with either extra mechanics or just stat boosts. Now, so far very little is known about the mechanics of the boss, or even anything about it honestly, but I did a little bit of research and found some interesting hints you might not know, which we will get into later on. So stick around, and if you enjoyed this video so far, consider spending the next 1.8 seconds liking this video. Yeah baby, we're 3 tick in YouTube now. So, the boss. Jagex likes to refer this as the Phantom Boss, and they stated they wanted to be slightly more mechanical version of Vorkat and Salra, but with lower stats and easier to hunt. So basically it's not as AFK, but should be faster. Not that Vorkat is AFK anyways, but you know, some people these days think that Raids 3 is AFK, so where do you draw the line honestly? Now I assume Jagex knows the average time for 1 KC of Vorkat is around a minute to 90 seconds, so you would think like a normal PvMer can take this new boss down between like 30 to 45 seconds, and with banking, restocking on supplies, it should be around 60 KC per hour for endgame PvMers. Mod Arcane stated that they added some interesting mechanics to this boss, so you actively have to always be ready for whatever comes next.
But I do think I've done some really weird things with it, which I think are quite interesting. It is a master level quest, so it's not going to be the new Inferno or anything like that, but it has got some really cool mechanics that I'm hoping feel really good to interact with, and it'll be a fun little grind to do for a while.
But if you do everything right, it shouldn't be much of a worry for everyone above combat level of 95 plus, which is pretty much the same as Sarachnis, so more of a mid-level boss that you can get multiple kills per trip rather than something like Nightmare boss where it's usually 1 or 2 per trip. And now for the rewards. Firstly, you can attach a new item to your current ancient staff called the Ancient Icon, and in return you will create a new weapon called the Ancient Scepter, which will increase your ancient spell effects by 10%. So bigger blood barrage, longer freezes and ice spells, and so on. Definitely gonna be used in Wildy, definitely gonna be used in raids. It's basically like a budget version of God I Want. Secondly, the boss drops Saturated Heart, which you can attach to your Imbued Heart, and that will basically work as a divine potion effect for magic. So let's say you have 99 magic, for 7 minutes you can boost your magic level to 107, and that also increases your max hit of magic spells. And thirdly, we have a new potion called the Forgotten Brew, which will also increase your magic level, similar to Saturated Heart, and can be combined with the Ancient Essence and Ancient Brews. By the way, I would highly start buying out Ancient Brews right now, as I think they will definitely increase in price in the next few weeks or months. There is gonna be a new currency called the Ancient Essence, which is somewhat related to Crystal Shards in a way where you can crush them up and make potions, or you can use them on your weapons to buff it. And lastly, we have the heavily debated Venator bow, which I'm now thinking might be the name of the final boss as well, because Jagex has a thing of naming weapons after the bosses you get them from. So I did a little research, and by research I mean I googled Venator RuneScape, and that brought an interesting monster from RuneScape 3, which was released 7 years ago, called the Venator. And that monster was basically this vampire style creature who can't be entirely killed, but rather when their HP goes low, they run away. And that ties in with the fact that Jagex stated how this boss is gonna be easily farmable. So my guess is the boss runs away and few seconds later returns, and you repeat it over and over again. Or you know, Venator is also Latin for hunter, so that might be the case as well. But let's talk about the Venator bow, as it is the main thing with this boss. Firstly, it's become a very common thing that you have to charge your weapons with some sort of essence. We have Sight with blood runes, Trident with runes, Boha with crystal shards, and so on. This bow is not any different, and the ancient essence required to use this bow comes from the boss itself. Jagex basically wants to repeat the process of Gauntlet in a way where you get the essence while you're also hunting for the bow. And once you do get the bow, you have enough essence to last you for a long time, especially for Iron Man. Bear in mind, the ancient essence is tradable, so if you're not an Iron Man and still want to use the bow, you can just buy the essence from GE, but it's a 100% guaranteed drop every time you defeat the boss, so I assume there will be abundance of that item after a while. Now the bow itself attacks up to 3 targets at a time, and the second and the third hit do 66% of the damage of the first hit, which makes me think the boss itself might have some AoE minions that work well with the bow itself. So for instance, you have a Venator target A, target B, and target C. If you hit 40 on target A, that will bounce off and deal up to 26 damage to B and C if the hit is successful, and the only way the arrows bounce is if the target A is within 3 tiles of target B and C. As we can see from here, the blue square is the target you hit, the purple and the orange squares are basically targets it can bounce to, and the black square is unreachable targets, so it's a 3x3 zone. It's basically like kicking a man in the balls. Not only you deal damage to your target, it's basically like an AoE damage where every target close to the initial blue square can also feel the pain. So you have like a budget Walmart version of Hawkeye arrows. Now granted, one thing that confuses me here is how you need 80 range to equip the bow. However, the boss itself is recommended for mid-level players. For comparison, Bofa and Sarai crossbow both are also 80 range, and they are one of the biggest endgame goals for players, so it kinda boggles my mind that we have a Sarachnis level boss that drops the same style weapons as Corrupted Gauntlet and the next bosses, but again, having more common bosses like this might be good for the game in the long run. My only hope is that the endgame players aren't gonna abuse this boss like we've seen with Warcut, like we've seen with Solra, but I think we all know new content for mid-level players means oftentimes it's gonna be abused by endgame players, so we'll see how it goes. In terms of strength, the bow is very similar to Dark Bow. They both have the same attack speed, one attack every 2.4 seconds, and they both have multiple hits when fired. If there was one thing that came to my mind immediately where this bow might be useful for Iron Man, it's the Baba's Puzzle Room, where you have a lot of monkeys, and having a bow that bounces around between targets could be useful for certain type of players. Another place this bow could be useful is some niche Slayer tasks that are multi-zones. Again, it doesn't swap out Chinchompas as they are much more useful for high intensive range training, but bosses like fight caves where you have multiple targets, God Wars rooms, maybe doing bandos with 6-0 method. I was even thinking of places like Barbarian Assault Attack Roll where you have a lot of clumped up NPCs waiting to be attacked and so on. Overall conclusion to this boss is that it should be very easily accessible to most players. It does have a lot of requirements skill wise to reach the boss, but I think it's basically gonna be like a budget version of Vorkat. One thing I would love to see is what the common loot table for the boss is gonna look like, and are there gonna be any alchables for Iron Man and so on, because that's basically gonna define how popular this boss is gonna be. That being said, I am personally extremely excited for this boss and I'm ready for new PvM content. Thank you all for watching this video. Please consider subscribing and liking the video to support this channel, and I'll see you all in few days with another video. Love you all. Bye. Mwah.